Dune, Tremors, Star Wars, Beetlejuice. What do they have in common? Sandworms. Now, some of you might be thinking, I've never seen any of these movies, or what the heck is a sandworm? Well, in science fiction, the story usually goes something like this. Now, there are some slight differences in sandworm mythology. For example, Shai-Hulud and graboids cannot travel through rock. A head comes out of a head in Beetlejuice sandworms, and the Sarlacc pit is pretty stationary. But there are some commonalities. They tend to have the following features. 1. They live in deserts. They are sandworms after all. 2. They can tell when people are walking nearby. And 3. They have large mouths with various configurations of teeth, and they eat people. Many science fiction creators have been influenced by actual living creatures and real science. But is there any truth to these depictions of sci-fi sandworms? And what else about worms is out of this world?
Only the very strong ones travel this deep.
I'm your host, Maria, and in this episode of Pop Wild, we'll dig into these stories. Grab a shovel and join us. What do we mean by worms, anyway? Well, worms is really just a figure of speech, usually used to describe a simple animal that has an elongated body and no limbs or eyes. There are worms that live in the soil, but there's also worms that live in the ocean, and there are parasitic worms that live inside of plant and animal hosts. There are tiny roundworms that you can only see through a microscope, and there are earthworms that are 22 feet long. In terms of scientific classification, worms are all over the place and are sometimes only distantly related to one another. In fact, humans are more closely related to fish than some worms are to each other. When we're talking about worms, especially in the forests of Southeast Ohio, we're usually talking about earthworms like red wigglers or night crawlers. Earthworms have segmented bodies. This means that their bodies are divided up into parts or segments that can expand or contract to help them move. They don't have ears, noses, or eyes, but they do have sensors that can help them detect light and dark. It's like if you close your eyes and move your hands in front of your face. You can still tell when the light is getting blocked out. Give it a try. Now that we know a little bit more about worms, it's time to test some of our sci-fi sandworm theories. Do worms like dry conditions? Can they tell when people are walking nearby? And do they eat people? To answer these questions, I brought in a special guest, Anne Horn, who is one of the naturalists here at the Nature Center. We just learned that there are a whole lot of different kinds of worms. If we were to dig in the ground right here, what kind of worms do you think we would find?
I think you're most likely to find earthworms. They're very common here, and you're going to be able to find them in your garden and outside, anywhere you dig up the soil or roll a log underneath.
Do worms like dry conditions?
Well, earthworms in particular like moist conditions. They have a very sensitive skin, so moisture helps them breathe and move around. So they wouldn't like it very much if it was very dry.
Is that why we might see earthworms moving around on rainy days?
Yes, earthworms like to move around when it's wet out, and we have a couple of different ideas on why. Some people think that it's because their tunnels are getting full of water and they need to move out of those areas so they don't get flushed with water and drown. But scientists think it might be a little bit different. They may use that time to move. Because they're more comfortable when it's damp out, they might be looking for a new place to live, come up, do some traveling, and find a new spot. Other folks think that maybe the vibrations of the rain on the soil feel like a predator is coming, so they want to get out of there and move away. So there's a lot of different reasons, but they certainly do move around when it's raining.
Can worms sense when humans are walking nearby?
Definitely. Worms can feel vibrations through the soil. So when we're walking, we can feel that, going along. The worms can feel that too. They don't really hear or see like us, but vibrations tell them a lot about their living environment around them. It might help them protect them from predators like moles that are coming after them. They can feel them in the soil. Sometimes worm charmers like to use different tools to get worms to come up to the surface, and they do that by creating vibrations on the soil.
The big question, can worms eat people?
Oh, that is a hard question. Well, the earthworms are decomposers, so they certainly do eat a lot. They eat leaves and dead material all the time in the soil, and that's what's really helpful about earthworms. They don't eat a live person, certainly, but when there is a decomposing body, whether it be an animal or a person, and they were underground, worms certainly would eat some of that material once it was decaying. So they don't exactly eat people alive, but they will eat people once they're passed.
The story goes that the original sci-fi sandworm was created by Dune author Frank Herbert, who was likely more influenced by mythological dragons than he was the humble earthworm. But there are some real-world creatures, besides the earthworm, that do have some sci-fi sandworm-like traits and may have influenced sci-fi creators. Some of these creatures are found in coastal areas. Lugworms are a type of worm that live in wet sand. They're burrowing animals that eat organic material out of the sediment. You'll often find the sunken holes from their burrows or their castings, aka worm poop, on beaches. Bobbit worms live in the ocean and hide in underwater tunnels with their antennae out, waiting to jump out at their prey, in a very sci-fi monster sort of way. Other sci-fi sandworm-like creatures can be found right here in the Cincinnati area. Antlion larvae make funnel traps in loose sandy soil, kind of like a sarlacc pit from Star Wars. It uses mouth parts to catch hapless prey, usually small insects, that fall into the trap. The graboid faces from the Tremors film series are said to be based partly on the jaws of snapping turtles, many of which can be found in local ponds and lakes. While depictions of sci-fi sandworms may not exactly be realistic, like many myths and stories we humans create, there is a kernel of truth behind them. What other organisms can you think of that may have influenced sci-fi creators? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and until next time, keep it curious.